Welcome to Studies in Theatre, MOOC lecture, Performance, Movements and Styles, Part 2. In the previous discussion, we saw a couple of movements that have influenced theatre at various phases in history. Carrying forward the same discussion, we will look at few more movements that have performance as its center, art as at its center, but they have influenced theatre so much. The first is avant-garde. Avant-garde is a French term which means advance-garde and signifies pioneering innovative art. So avant-garde art is characterized by aesthetic innovation and exploration of new forms or subjects. Avant-garde theatre or experimental theatre deviates from conventional theatrical norms. It serves as a means to deconstruct and manipulate traditional theatre structures, and it is often employed for political commentary. It challenges established norms. You can see that the picture that is before you is very different, very fresh in its minimalism, in its presentation. It speaks many things about being very experimental. Then symbolism is a very important movement which originated in 19th century in France and Belgium, and it influenced so many artistic productions, so many art cultures across Europe and beyond, that it is very important to understand symbolism per se. It is a reaction, a response against naturalism and realism in art. The two movements that we discussed in the previous lecture, these two movements now stand challenged through symbolism. The key characteristics of symbolism are emphasis on the internal life of dreams, fantasies, and spirituality. It is highly metaphorical and suggestive in nature because symbols do not have any factuality. Symbols have a dream, symbols have an imagination to their core, and they are woven around an experience, they are woven around a feeling, they are woven around an idea of beauty and aesthetics. You can see that in this picture, the death of the gravedigger, a very symbolic representation of a scene is present. Jean Morias released the symbolist manifesto, Le Symbolisme, in Le Figaro on September 1886. The manifesto identifies Charles Baudelaire, Stéphane Mallarmé, Paul Verlaine as the primary poets of the symbolist movement. Morias proclaimed symbolism's opposition to plain meanings, declamations, false sentimentality, and matter-of-fact descriptions. So it's very clear that what has been rejected in this kind of art production, that it is not in tune with finding plain meanings, and it also rejects declamations, it rejects false sentimentality, matter-of-fact description as well. So symbolism is a significant paradigm that impresses upon theatre the need to symbolically represent on stage rather than presenting the ideas and dialogues and feelings in a very matter-of-fact or descriptive mannerism. Auguste Villiers de Isle Adams' drama Auxol, revised edition, was published in 1890, is a quintessential symbolist play. It illustrates aristocrats falling in love while attempting to kill each other, choosing mutual suicide as nothing in life could match their fantasies. It's a story of a couple who first of all have differences with each other, but then they fall in love with each other. They are from elite families, but ultimately since they do not find that anything is matching in them, their fantasies are very different from each other, so they decide to commit suicide, and that kind of decision was perhaps the only thing that they could agree upon. So their death becomes a kind of a communion wherein they have same mind, wherein they have the same decision to take place. So this is a very strange kind of a story, but very important symbolic play, and it is known to be a very good example of symbolic playwriting and theatre. Then you have another playwright, Anton Chekhov, whose works are highly symbolic and they are influenced by symbolic movement, which we have discussed. This movement encourages the audience to interpret imagery and ideas, seeking the original absolute truth. So audience have a very important role to play in this kind of theatre because they are free to imagine, they are free to interpret, they are free to bring in their own ideas, they are free to bring in their own experiences, their own worldview in order to decipher the meanings from the things that are present on stage, from costumes to characters to properties, the words, the silences, everything has a symbolic presence in this kind of theatre. This theatre is a this movement is a very rich resource to giving innovations to theatre, giving experimental space to theatre, and it opened a kind of a field to many playwrights who would feel restricted in their spaces and would not be able to write or would not feel happy to write about something in the prescribed manner or in the fashion it was being done. So they started flying in their own world high, and as a result, various kinds of genres emerged out after this particular thing. Dadaism is connected to symbolism. It's an avant-garde art movement in the early 20th century, and it was founded in 1916 by Hugo Ball and Emmy Hennings. It was developed as a reaction to World War I. Dada artists rejected the logic, reason, and aestheticism of modern capitalist society. Instead, they expressed nonsense, irrationality, and anti-bourgeoisie protest in their works. Tristan Tzara pioneered Dada theatre in Zurich. You can see this fountain that is visible in the picture. This fountain depicts a very strange kind of combination. It looks like a urinal, but it's a fountain. It's an artwork, and this artwork represents the spirit of Dadaism because this artwork tells you that Dadaism is about flying high, looking at a world with your own eyes, with your own experiences, and restraining or fighting that compulsive practice to create meaning in everything. Especially the World War I had influenced had given birth to this movement because fighting this war had become a precedent of a very illogical kind, where any other thing could not be justified because the big powers of that time, political powers, had failed to restrain the war, and they had led the continent of Europe into destruction. They could have had they been reasonable, had they used logic, the war would not have happened. But since the war happened, why should restrictions be allowed only on arts, performances, culture, and other institutions of human world order? So this is a very revolting kind of a space that is inviting audience into imagining about what is happening on stage. May be true, may not be true, it may have some other meanings, and the meanings may be different from what different audience is viewing for. Dadaism in theatre is a political and anarchist movement. It relies on randomness, absurdity, and disconnected plots for performances. The three words are very important: randomness, absurdity, and disconnected plots for performances. This particular style of theatre looks to create a confusion on stage where things are often disturbing. It seeks to create an impact on audience where they are supposed to be shocked, to be irritated, they are to be stirred up, and they have to be brought out from their comfort zones. The expectations from the play are to be not fulfilled. So at the level of story, at the level of dialogues, at the level of different plots, there is total disconnectedness. It seeks to create confusion in its quintessential mannerism. It has artistic meanings, philosophical and political ideas to be conveyed, but they need to plan an unplanning, visual that is unplanned. So there is a lot of effort to create disorder, and audiences are provoked by watching such plays. Provocation in the sense of feeling unsettled with what they had expected and what they found finally in the play. So The Guest's Heart, a 1921 play by Sarah, mocks theatre traditions. It is, I have been telling you constantly that every theatre that is considered new from the new in any times and age uh, achieves the first thing, and that is to go beyond and rebel against its own form, against its own tradition. So Guess Heart, this play by Sarah, being a Dadaist play, mocks capitalist society and audience expectations. This picture that is present before you is the perfect embodiment of the spirit of Dadaism in theatre. The confusion, the light, the properties, the arrangement, everything is out there for a purpose of unsettling the audience and let there be no meaning, let there be no connectedness. Now, moving on from Dadaism to Surrealism, Surrealism is also connected to Dadaism, and both of them are connected to Symbolism. It's an art and cultural movement that emerged in Europe after World War I. Artists sought to enable the expression of the unconscious mind, often depicting illogical or dreamlike scenes and ideas. So here we need to understand that unconscious mind, psychological intervention in theatre have started taking shape because of the development of the field of psychology and the problems that people are facing. The European society and European ethos is hurt and bruised because of the World War I. Now, in that scenario, the representation that emerges is of how to express the unconscious mind. So, illogicality, dreamlike state is often considered unreal, but there is a real and there is unreal. Dream is not real, reality is real. So, breaking this binary, this kind of philosophy seeks to create some kind of meaningfulness in the coexistence of dream and reality. Andre Breton articulated the movement's intention as resolving the contradictions between dream and reality into an absolute reality, and he termed it surreality. So there is a super reality, there is a reality beyond real and dream, where these two binaries stop contesting for each other's presence or denying each other's presence, and this is surreal. This book is that Surrealist Manifesto by Andre Breton, written in 1924. Then in coming to theatre, how this movement has influenced theatre, it is defined by non-realism, symbolism, and a focus on the subconscious mind. It often features the juxtaposition of words and objects, creating a dreamlike atmosphere open to various interpretations. So, dreamlike objects are brought in the atmosphere of reality, and reality is challenged by this dreaminess, and dreaminess is challenged by reality, and yet they both exist together, and that is surreality. So many a times we say that I felt something surreal. Surreal is something where we do not know what is exactly happening, what is the situation, what has happened, why it has happened, when did it happen, how it happened. So when something is totally undefinable, uh, it's not palpable, it's not describable, then we call it surreal. So in that sense also, if you look at surrealist theater, this theater seeks to present before us things that are far-fetched, things that are dreamlike but can be real, things that are real but can be dreams. So originating in Paris in 1920s, it was performed at venues like the Theatre Alfred Jarry and the Theatre White Rat. Connected to Dadaism, Surrealist theatre traces its roots to the breast of Tiresias. So this is a story of Tiresias. Tiresias is a character in mythology. In mythology, the story is that there is a man who gets to live like a woman for a couple of years. And here the story in in this play, Tiresias, the breasts of Tiresias, written by Apollinaire. I'm sorry, I'm sorry for this pronunciation mistake. The breasts of Tiresias by Apollinaire, performed in Paris in 1918. In this play, the story of original Tiresias is subverted. Here, a woman gets to live like a man, and the story then is about how she experiences this unreality as real, or this dream as real. So surrealism in theatre laid the groundwork for Antonin Artaud's theatre of cruelty in the 1920s and 30s, and the theatre of the absurd movement in 1950s, both centered in Paris. So it's a very important performance movement which we must keep in our mind, that went on to influence such theatre traditions, theatre styles, and where theatre of the absurd is something really important for all of us. Now you can see this performance inspired by Dali's Surrealism, and I'm going to present before you this video.
Hey there, I'm Mike Rugnetta. This is Crash Course Theater, and today's episode should be in the form of a manifesto because we've reached the 20th century, and pretty much every new movement comes with multiple mission statements at this point. But did those mission statements include animated sequences and one charming cranium co-host? They did not. Today, we'll be exploring Symbolism, Surrealism, and Dadaism, the movement that argued how, in a random and senseless universe, the only approach is to be more random. Asteroid, several ducks in a giant teapot, cufflinks, roll time. Writers like Ibsen, Strindberg, and Chekhov turned to symbolism later in life, although the movement's main proponent was the almost all symbolist, almost all the time Belgian playwright Maurice Maeterlinck. Symbolism argues that poetry is superior to reality, and that out of the chaos and evanescence of human life, a quieter and more lasting truth can be discerned. The movement got going in the 1860s and 1870s with folks like the famous poets Stéphane Mallarmé and Charles Baudelaire. It was formally announced in the 1886 manifesto published in the French paper Le Figaro. Here are some of symbolism's basic tenets. Truth in excess and extravagance. Truth in apparent chaos and insanity. Truth in subjective experience. Platitudes and natural banality are dangerous. We need to be constantly ever more audacious. The movement was anti-realism and resisted concentrating on the nitty-gritty of daily life. Instead, symbolists or God that is ever with me were early adherents, but in 1916, Sartre created maybe
they are not rejections of each other, because one thing that happens now stands on something that has already happened in the past. So this is it. Let us stop here. After this lecture, there are more lectures to follow on the same topic. This is an extensive discussion, and the sources that I have used in this particular presentation are these. So I meet you in the next lecture. Thank you very much. I hope you have enjoyed it.